This week, what we're going to talk about is temptation because it's the triple threat. Temptation itself is not sin, but temptation attempts to lead us into sin. God does not tempt us. If God does not tempt us, then who does? It's the enemy. He is relentless. The enemy is relentless, and you need to know that when it comes to your moments of temptation. You are walking along your way, and anything you just pause for a second and look at, the enemy's logging that away. We can use that down the road. Let's use that one late at night. Let's use that one when they're tired, when they're hungry, when they're stressed, when they're worn out. There's some statements out there. Satan loves you. No, he does not. He wants to destroy you. He wants to eat you alive because you are made in the image of God, and he hates God and anything that looks like God. And he is coming after you. The second, you need to know the world is appealing. The world is appealing. Verse 14, but each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. We just need to recognize the fact that the world does look good to us. Like it does look good to us. Like some of us walk around, we've said yes to Jesus, and we feel like we have to act as though the world is no longer interesting to us at all. Yet inwardly, we're so curious and we're so drawn. We just need to have the humility to recognize the world looks good. It's really attractive. It wants to constantly draw us in the most famous ways. And for the past 1,000 years, since Thomas Aquinas, the church has been talking about it in these terms: money, sex, power, and honor. I'm not going to get deep into honor today because next week, Pastor Les is going to talk about how pride gets in the way. But money, sex, and power have a way of luring us in a way that feels good on the front end. But the goal is to eventually devour your life. Some of you've given your life to Jesus and you genuinely want to follow his ways and walk in freedom. You've got some serious sin in your life that either people know about or people may not even know about. And when you are tempted to continue down this path, you have bought into the lie that God must not be with me. Maybe I left him behind somewhere along the way. Maybe he left me behind somewhere along the way. And you need to know nothing could be further from the truth. The Lord is present. What we understand is that when we say yes to Jesus, temptation becomes testing. And testing is used by God to build you up and strengthen you for what's ahead. And each leg of the journey, instead of going round and round through failure after failure, God's design is that you would be strengthened to move forward into the next leg of the journey. So how do we do this? How do we actually practice a life of victorious living related to these four realities? The first, when it comes to the enemy, resist the enemy. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. I believe the place of prayer is where we resist the enemy. This is the Lord's Prayer. He's teaching the disciples how to pray. And one of the things he's teaching them to pray is that we would be delivered from temptation, delivered from the evil one, okay? It's not just the spiritual transaction that takes place when I pray, God, make me strong. But when I live a life of prayer, I actually lose my appetite for the things of my flesh or the things of the world or the things that the enemy wants to draw me into. As you cultivate that over time, if you are intentional about it, you will lose your appetite for the things that can tear you down. And you, like God, will not be tempted nearly as much by evil. 2, starve the flesh. When it's related to our flesh, which is weak, the encouragement here is starve it. Galatians 5:16. So I say, walk by the Spirit and do not gratify the desires of the flesh, okay? So starve the flesh, meaning have a little self-control. Like don't just indulge in everything that is out there. I know a lot of times people are so worried about being legalistic and being prudish and being kind of ancient in the way they think about things. And I want y'all to know, some holiness is the most beautiful way to live. And we need to have some joy-filled, holy no's in our life. Next, be wise in the world. 1 John 2:16, do not love the world or anything in the world. Be wise about the inputs that you allow in your life. Be wise about what you're watching, what you're listening to, what you're taking in on a regular basis, what you're allowing to take up space in your mind, in your heart. And then lastly, and this is most important, is lean into the Lord. Lean into the Lord. 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sin and purify us from all unrighteousness. Y'all, the beauty of the gospel is that we can be forgiven. Love is what motivates holiness. The way that we grow in purity, the way that we grow in holiness, the way that we grow in obedience is not by gritting our teeth. It's by humbly running to the Father and saying, I can't do it. And when you experience that loving embrace and you realize he still loves me and he's still for me, and you start to lose your appetite over time for the things of the world, the flesh, and the devil,